I like to say that people ask me all the time about the Bauhaus, but I can't, because in the United States. So I'm a professor, so I usually just start talking, sometimes in front of a class, sometimes in front of a camera. And in this case, I'm talking in front of you. And so when I bring up Bauhaus, what happens is some people know about it, some people don't. Some people will just sort of mention a band, a goth band from years ago, and then they bring up Bela Lugosi, and then maybe talk about Ed Wood and the wonderful performance in the Ed Wood movie. But there is an interrelationship between the Ed Wood movie and the Weimar Republic. But that's sort of a tenuous thing. But today, it's pretty cool to call things Bauhaus. So much that there is, I think it's a muffler shop in Berkeley, California. Also in California, in Modesto, there's a bar and grill named Bauhaus. But aside from calling things Bauhaus today, whether or not it has anything to do with the original Bauhaus, that's something else. So what is it? What is this thing called Bauhaus? Well, it's two German words fused together. One is house and the other is Bau, which tends to mean building. So it kind of works for this Bauhaus thing in Germany, which is a Home Depot-like place that sells hardware and do-it-yourself things for you to build stuff. And it was started by a guy whose last name was Baus. So it does kind of work there. And I could say, like Home Depot, although Home Depot tried to team up with the guy who has this Bauhaus thing, but it's a series of stores like Home Depot throughout Europe, and I think slightly beyond Europe. And the Bauhaus stores never quite synced with Home Depot, so they never did anything together. But they own the trademark. They own the trademark on Bauhaus, at least in Germany. So if you start a small furniture company and you call your furniture company, our Bauhaus is better than your Bauhaus, and you end up doing some stuff even with the Barbican in London, they'll still send you a cease and desist. And that's what they did. And this small furniture company pretty much said, we don't want to go to court with that big of a company. We'd probably lose. And they changed their name to New Tendency, which is a great term because it also comes from the Bauhaus, but not the home repair. Are you following? So, also, they knew they would lose because the originators of the name, who were tied to the Bauhaus archive in Germany, did try to sue and unsuccessfully did not own the trademark that they came up with originally. So what is this Bauhaus thing? Well, go back 100 years and go back even more, and you'll see that art and design is a big part of the original Bauhaus. But let's go back a little bit more at a time when art was taught just like any other subject in traditional education. In fact, it was known as academic art. And the way it was taught was very similar to you're told things, and then you take those things and you regurgitate them, in this case on a canvas. And it was known as academic art. And academic art was very good at just sort of recreating Renaissance art and what art had been for hundreds and hundreds of years. So after World War I, in the area that we know today as Germany, but it was known as the Weimar Republic, there was a lot of, what would you say, stress, a lot of things happening that made it popular for new things to pop up. I think popular could be the word there. Well, what you had was, in Weimar, no money. Well, you had lots of money. It just wasn't worth anything. Germany had kind of been blamed for World War I, which causes problems down the road, led to the sequel, World War II. But Germany became this boiling pot for new ideas. No one had money. There's a lot of creative people, and there's a lot of people who are just sort of fed up with the way things had been. And they started coming up with new stuff, ranging from entertainment, music. You had just all kinds of stuff going on there. Go watch Bob Fosse's Cabaret and you'll get an idea of what that's about. Or go see the play if it's playing anywhere. But in this area, the Weimar Republic, it had its own capital known as Weimar. And in Weimar, a bunch of things happened that caused this one guy named Walter Gropius, an architect, to show up and basically take two of the schools they had going there. And it was interesting. It was the two schools that covered the parts of art that in academic art were just kind of not necessarily sinking, which is fine art and then applied art. So these two schools, one was applied art school, one was a fine art school, got merged together. He decided to come up with a new name for it, what we know today as new branding. And with new branding, he came up with Bauhaus. And so he took those words, probably long before, I'd have to look it up, before the guy who started the home improvement thing was probably born, but who knows. But anyway, he came up with the name Bauhaus. House for building is what it translates as. And he approached education differently, and he based it on what was done by stonemasons and woodblock carvers and stuff back long ago, because trees make great wood carving stuff. And he had this whole master apprentice setup, which is a different way to learn art. Everyone would study at their own pace, and essentially you would learn things based on your skills. And the goal was to get all the students to unlock their own innate talents. So, like I like to say, everyone's good at something. So how about you go to school and find out what that is? And so students would go through this curriculum where they would study all kinds of different stuff, find out what they're good at, what they're not good at, and then find out what they enjoy. And then they would continue their studies and only graduate when they knew what they were doing. At least that's the theory behind everything. And like any good school, there were fights among the teaching masters and things changed. But what happened was the people who made it out of there ended up changing the world as we know it. Famous names came out of this school, and it led to what we know as modernism, and a big part of mid-century modernism. And then there was the international style, and all this stuff just sort of radiated from Germany, from this school that moved a few times because a guy with a square mustache a failed artist with a square mustache who took over Germany really didn't like them. But if you want to know more about the Bauhaus, there's a lot out there. First of all, talk to anyone from Europe. They usually know about it. But there are lots of books, old books. There are other old books. There are newer books, Bauhaus typography. There are things taking it apart. There's Bauhaus student writes books and has written a few books, and even, I found recently, a graphic novel. So, if you want to know what Bauhaus is, beyond Home Depot and beyond the band, go look it up. It's out there.